Like it. You got a little thing that says we're on air?
Yeah, it says live.
All right, perfect. That's exactly what we need to be doing. All right. So,
You got this recording, right?
yep, this is recording. Well, the thing is, like, as soon as the live stream ends, I could save the video and then
Okay.
take the audio from that and put it into whatever I need to use.
Gotcha.
All right. So, 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to a summer edition episode of Dump and Change presented by From the Bleachers. I'm your host, Stephen Pappas, joined by Tom Krasnowski. Tom, how's your summer been going so far?
Summer's been going great. Flyers have been busy, and I've been enjoying the time off, but glad to be here talking some hockey today, huh?
There's a lot of teams that have been busy, especially with the draft that happened over this past weekend. We'll get into that. We'll get into some signings. We'll get into some trades. But first, I want to let everybody know that we are now on Spotify at Dump and Change. Yes, we have Spotify, Apple Music, and then the actual Shout Engine website where you can listen to us. So we're trying our best to expand where you guys can find us and get our brand out there.
You can find us anywhere. There's no reason not to be listening to our podcast now. I have no reason.
From the Bleachers went on Spotify a couple of weeks ago, and it was a good idea to cross-platform to say. To get everybody out there. And then we're mulling around with the whole YouTube idea. Maybe that's something that we will have to talk about. But you didn't come here to listen to us talk about.
No, let's get into it. Huh?
Yeah, what we're going to do with the podcast. So the NHL draft started Friday, ended, I believe, yesterday. It was only 2 days. It's not like the NFL where it goes into Sunday. But, you know, a lot of people say this is the Hughes Kakko draft. This is what it'll be remembered for. And after so much speculation, I don't even know if it's speculation, but people wanting to make an argument for Kaapo Kakko going first, I think the Devils made the right choice with Jack Hughes going one. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I think they made the right choice. I mean, this is going to sound old school, but I'll always take a center over a winger, one overall, if it's close. You know, I mean, I'll take the winger if he's a better player. But if it's close, I'll take the center. Hughes has kind of always been the number one guy all development process long, and I think they made the right fit. Devils could use young centers. They could use guys who are fast. And Kakko, he's a great player too. I mean, the Rangers, the 1-2 punch in this draft was better than we've had in several years. And that both these teams got it through the lottery makes it even more fun. Makes it harder for me as a Flyers fan. But you know, it was hard to get it wrong, particularly from the Rangers' perspective. But I think the Devils did make the right choice. Hughes. Again, it just comes down to being a center. He's fast. He's, not much not to like.
Exactly. And really what's lost in the fact that, it was a top 2 heavy draft. I mean, 1 through 10, you really couldn't go wrong in. I mean, you guys, got guys, Bowen Byram, Dylan Cousins. I think that's how you say his last name. Someone, I forgot who it was, said it a little different, but Dylan
Cousins, a baseball player named Dylan Cousins.
Yeah, I think it's Cousins. I think it might be Cousins, but you had Cousins, you had Byram, you had Kirby Doc, you had who's the guy that the Flyers passed on twice? That went to Montreal. Who was it?
Cole Caulfield.
We
don't like small guys in Philly. Danny
We're going to, especially with picking up Kevin Hayes, which we're going to talk about later in the show. But I think other than everybody wants to talk Kakko, Hughes. I think we might as well start with our dark horse picks. And I guess I'll start just because we mentioned him, Cole Caulfield. I think
was not a dark horse. He was a top 5 pick for some people.
Well, that's what I mean. He's someone that went later in the draft. By later, I mean I think it was 15, 16.
15,
yeah, to Montreal after the Flyers passed on him twice.
I'm okay with it.
He's a guy, like you mentioned, he's a small guy. But you see the NHL starting to get smaller and smaller, and I forgot who it was. I think it was either EJ Radick or somebody on NHL Network saying he's got one of the best shots in this draft. One of the guys that he's a pure scorer, and Montreal is going to get a good guy with him. I think he's definitely the dark horse. And I also wanted to throw in Dylan Cousins, or Cousins, however you want to say. I really loved him. I wanted to see the Rangers trade up, maybe because they were talking about moving VC and Kreider. I would have loved to see them move VC, Kreider, and maybe one of their second-round picks up to maybe the 8 or 7 spot to try and go after Cousins, because that guy's going to be a legit center. He's got the size and he's got the skill.
I like what I was hearing from him. Caulfield, I mean, good player, good scorer. Montreal, I know, loves small players, so they can have him as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to get a real dark horse here. This guy picked 39th overall, unlike your top 10 dark horses. Jackson Lacombe. He's a defenseman from Shattuck St. Mary's Prep. He was drafted by the Anaheim Ducks. And I like, and we'll give a second look at anybody that's from Shattuck St. Mary's because it has an impeccable class in both men's and women's hockey. Crosby, McKinnon, Quinnipiac's own Melissa Samoskevich. Many great players come from there. Parisi, I believe, was another one. So anyone that comes from there, I'm going to take a good look at. And Lacombe, 6'1", 172, so he got some size, but he also put up 22 goals this year in midget prep for the Shattuck St. Mary's Prep. You know, he's just got great offensive numbers. He got decent size. And the reason he's my dark horse is because he was viewed as what one site called him a B+ prospect, and they were a little surprised he went so early. But I like the track record from that school, and with the way defense is moving in the NHL these days, he's got size, also got skill. I think he could be a good player on an Anaheim team that could use some new blood on defense.
I see your 39th pick, and I'll raise you the 38th pick in Raphael Lavoie. He's a Canadian-born player, got drafted by the Edmonton Oilers, excuse me, and he's a guy that they were really high on earlier in the year. He's a guy, I think he's 6'4", 210, big dude, plays forward, a good power forward type of player. But he was a guy that lacked consistency, and they said lacked the mental strength to play in the NHL to this point. But I think that's something that a team can build, and I think Dale Hunter in Edmonton can really get that out of him. To go along with Connor McDavid, I mean, you got guys
historically a place people go for good mental training. Edmonton has ruined a few careers.
Oh yeah, but I think that was under Peter Chiarelli and the other regimes that was before him. I think Dale Hunter has been a proven a good guy.
Yes,
he's been a good coach. Hopefully we'll see him turn around Edmonton into a playoff team to see Connor McDavid. I think Raphael Lavoie was a guy that they expected to go in the early second round, and he did. But I think another name that we should be keeping our eyes out for. So from the draft, I think actually before we move on for the draft, I want to say the 1 through 10, probably the best 10 players in this draft. What was your thought on the 1 through 10s? How do you think it shaped up for what? I mean, there were Patrick Flatley specifically put out
I
his
saw that. Yeah,
I went like 2 for 10.
Point that out.
How do you think the top 10 went? In your opinion?
I know a lot of people were surprised. I'm going to butcher this name. How about that guy that went 10th to Vancouver? Pod Colton or something like that? I thought he could have been a little bit higher. I'd read a little bit about him. Broberg at 8, I think it's a great fit for the Oilers. Big defenseman. They could use one of those. Cousins still available at 7. Yeah, I think it worked out okay. It was definitely a little bit surprising. I know from a Flyers perspective, because we were originally a team of the 11th pick, and there were some guys on the board there. They trade down to 14. There were some guys on the board there that they did not expect to be there as fans. And we were doing our pre-scouting. Boldy and Caulfield and Krebs were guys that we were looking at as Flyers targets, and they were all there at 11. Some of them could have been top 10 picks, and none of them were. So it was a little bit surprising at the bottom end. But, I think a lot of teams got what they needed. I like the Oilers. They picked the defenseman they could use. I don't know. It was a little bit surprising. But you know what? That's why sometimes you get caught up in mock drafts. It happens.
I think the biggest surprise by far was Moritz Seider going number 6 to the Detroit Red Wings. That was he wasn't really in the top 10 type of discussion, and then kind of slid in, and Detroit really loved him as a defenseman. I
don't do a ton of draft research, to be quite honest, but I know who the top 10 guys are, at least. I will say that one surprised me. I do remember that one specifically. I didn't really know.
He got surprised himself. You saw the video of him? He got drafted. He was kind of like in shock. He's like, wait, what? But yeah, so the draft wrapped up nice. We all got the guys that we wanted. I think the Rangers drafted well. It was hard to not draft well after the first pick. Matthew Robertson was kind of an iffy for me in the second round. But I can't put my thumb on the name. But they got another Finnish guy, I want to say, in the in the later rounds. I think it was the third or fourth round, who's touted as one of the best pure skaters in the draft. So it's something to see how he can run if he makes it in the next couple of years. I mean, the Rangers got a good amount of prospects now in their prospect pools. So it should be interesting. Well, actually, I saw a graphic on Twitter, which I'm going to read later in the episode when we talk about Jacob Trouba and everything like that, that Jeff Gordon's turned into. But the biggest news, I think, that has come in as soon as the St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup back almost 2 weeks ago, was Erik Karlsson re-signing with the San Jose Sharks. It was 8 years, $88 million, $11 million per year, and it's kind of that $11 million is kind of a sweet spot number that we're starting to see with some of these superstars. I mean, Mitch Marner's pining for $11 million right now, but he goes for $11 million, $88 million, 11 per year. It makes him the eighth highest paid NHL player behind Tavares, Ovechkin, Taves, and Kane, and a couple others. Do you like this? I mean, I know you're an open Sharks fan. Do you like this deal as a Sharks fan?
Well, I mean, it's hard not to like the deal in that you're getting a great player for 8 years. I'm not going to argue with that. But for me, I've been outspoken before that I think it was a little bit unnecessary. I think the Sharks might have been better off using that money on other pieces. The guys they still have to re-sign Meyer. They still have to re-sign LeBanc. Pavelski's future is in the air. Thornton's future is in the air. He wants to come back, but at this point, he might have to take $2 million, and he's probably doesn't want to do that. He could get more somewhere else, but the other thing for me is I've said before, if I was the Sharks, I'd be looking at using that Karlsson money if they still wanted to go big. And look at a goalie, look at Bobrovsky maybe, but Karlsson for me, it's hard to be mad because he's a great player, but I just didn't know how great he fit the system. Maybe that was a little bit of uncomfortableness with the contract year coming up. I mean, I think he's definitely getting more comfortable over time, but until they make it to a Stanley Cup final with Karlsson, I'll be a little suspect of the deal. I'll be a little bit suspicious. He's got to prove to me that he can be that guy over there and be worth that money, because there could be some franchise-altering implications from this.
So you saying that they should have gone after a goalie? You think that they should give up on Martin Jones after his performance?
Yes.
Really?
You're not up with that guy.
Oof. All right. I don't 100% agree with you on that one. I mean, granted, the guy had one bad playoffs, but he's taken you to a Stanley Cup final in 1 year. I think this is granted, you're touted with one of the best defensive cores in hockey. Yeah. Are they the best defensive core in hockey? No, by no stretch of the imagination. But I
like Jones for a little bit there, but to me, he's just becoming, really, quite frankly, he's becoming Steve Mason. He's becoming a guy who's got 6 great weeks and then 6 bad weeks and then 2 okay weeks, and you never know what you're going to get. He's okay. He's all right, but I don't know. They need something better in my book. Or they could make the defense core better. Maybe Karlsson will help with that. So we'll see.
Well, I would say give Jones one more year. If he gave you a performance like he did this year, maybe it's time to go in another direction. But I think one bad year, I think it's too early to go panic, hit the panic button for Martin Jones.
Trying to give Andrew Shortridge a shot.
That is true. He is in their system. But from a logistical standpoint, Karlsson, 29 years old. By the end of his contract, he'll be 37. He's usually, granted, outside of this year, he's usually healthy in his career. He played 53 games last year. We all know that. He had surgery on his birthday on his groin. It's not clear he'll be ready for the start of the season this year. But for the Sharks, their window is right now. Their window is in the next 3 or 4 years. They need to get something done. So for the 8 years that they have on this contract with Erik Karlsson, do you think maybe towards the back end of this contract, maybe 2-3 years left on that contract, they maybe consider buying him out when he gets into his mid to late 30s?
Yeah, it's going to be ugly when you're paying a guy $11 million at 35. That's not going to be a good look. But it's all worth it if they win with him. But like you said, I couldn't agree more with the window. In fact, it might even be smaller at this point. It could even be smaller. So they've got to go all in. Their time it's dwindling. So Karlsson does give them the best shot at, capitalizing on this production that they have right now and really going all in. So I really got to see improvement next year. And I hope as a casual Sharks fan that I see it.
I mean, think about just how crazy this offseason is going to get. I mean, granted, Carlson's off the board now, but you got guys like Marner who what I'm hearing is teams are gonna start throwing offer sheets at him like it's nobody's business because he's not happy with the money he's getting in Toronto. The name that I really was surprised to hear, Sebastian Aho in Carolina.
Yeah, why?
Because they're saying that Carolina is a team that doesn't throw a lot of money around, and their original offer to Aho this year was in the $6 to $7 million range. And they say if a team comes out and throws an offer sheet at $10 million, there's no chance that Carolina can match that.
Would you do that? Would you?
That's the thing. If you're a team that's under the cap, if you got $15, $20 million to spend under the cap and you're looking for a superstar, if you need a superstar to get you over the hump to either a playoff contender or a cup contender, I think it's a no-brainer. There's no way that with Carolina, how they are run financially, that they'd be able to match a $11 million offer. And if you're a team that maybe needs another superstar, if you look maybe like a team like Buffalo, I'm not sure their cap space right now, but a team that really, they just signed Jeff Skinner. Granted, that's also kind of goes against my theory of Buffalo. But a team like Detroit that has a lot of money to spend, and as a team that's on the uprise, I think they're a team that maybe Sebastian Aho will look at, or a team that'll throw an offer sheet at him.
Could be an interesting summer for RFAs. The cap came in a touch short what it was expected to be on some of the high estimates. I know when I was doing my armchair GM exercises on Cap Friendly, we're using the $83 million cap.
Yep.
Now it's what, 81.5. So that could be a player, or the difference in signing somebody or not signing somebody. That is a substantial amount when you're building a roster. So, that could make some teams who are strapped for cash, like Toronto, like Carolina,
Vegas is over the cap.
Yeah, it sell pieces. And I saw one tweet saying even could Pacioretty be available already in Vegas? It's just a speculation, but you're right. That's how bad a situation they're in right now. So definitely going to be some moving parts and some young players. Aho's interesting topic. I hadn't thought about some fits for him, but Carolina, they would have to pay big time to keep him. Shea Weber style. They would have to pay.
Yeah, and they're probably not going to keep Mrazek well. So that team could look very different. They might have just had a 1 year, a Cinderella one and done if they can't sign any of these guys, especially with Aho, probably the staple of the franchise at this point. But we kind of got off topic a little bit. Still talking about Erik Karlsson. They still have to sign Jonas Donskoy, Kevin Labanc, like you mentioned, who's coming off his ELC, so he's going to get paid. Timo Meier is an RFA who's probably going to look at 7 or 8 to go along with Karlsson. Kane and all of them are really strapped for cash at the top end of their team.
Meier, 7 or 8 million
for a year. Timo Meier,
yeah,
maybe a little less than that.
I'd say in
the 6s, definitely in the 6s for Timo Meier. But again, this is kind of goes along. As a Sharks fan, do you regret 8 years? Maybe not the whole contract of signing Karlsson. Are you going?
I told you already. I wouldn't have done it personally. I don't like. I'll have an answer for sure after I see who has to get cut to make room for this. They already had to move on Braun to Philly. Important part of their team. A lot of players like them, underrated kind of defenseman. They already had to move him on just to save enough money to re-sign some people. Yeah, I could see a situation where Pavelski could even leave, and that would really, I don't know, if Pavelski had to go to make room for Karlsson, hypothetically, I'd be out. I'd be really mad about that. So, I could see a world where they get offer sheeted for Meier high in the 6s, like you had mentioned, and that could be a problem. They might have to sell somebody off big time to keep this guy or risk losing him. I think Labanc, too, that's a guy that a team could overpay for easily. Because I like him a lot. I would be willing to take a chance on him. So, yeah, when we see the smoke settle, we see who the Sharks are potentially losing to make room for this, I'll have a more clear answer. But right now, yeah, I'm a little scared about the future of the Sharks, which is their young players. They're going all in with what they have with the Stars. And if the Stars are good enough, then great. But they could lose some young players.
Well, look at you going right into our nice transition into our next topic.
Yeah,
the Justin Braun trade to the Philadelphia Flyers for a 2019 second-round pick and a 2020 third-round pick. Flyers fan, what do you think? Now that I put you from the perspective of a Sharks fan, now back to your Flyers fan, what do you think?
I liked it. The Flyers could use a right hand ever since they traded Gudas for Niskanen, which I like that move. I do like that move. They needed a right hand defenseman with a little bit of physicality and can kill some penalties. Braun does that. It didn't cost that much. They got the second round pick back anyway, and they selected almost the same spot. The third round pick doesn't bother me. The Flyers had like 9 picks in this year's draft, so they had a couple to give away. And Braun, he's not a game changer, but he's just a solid defenseman. They could use him. I can see the gears turning in your mind. You're thinking about all sorts of advanced stats here, but this guy's teammates love and respect this guy because what he means on the ice. They see it, and I have seen him be a rock for the Sharks for several years already. He's just a good, solid player. You can give me any Corsi fender you want. This guy, I don't know. He's not an advanced stats darling, but he's not a bad player either by any means. He makes the Flyers better. No, Niskanen and Braun instead of Gudas and McDonald.
Clearly, he's not an advanced stats Cinderella, you want to say, but you're doing a great job, by the way, of transitioning into my next talking points. And I wanted to say that Braun was statistically the worst mainstay defenseman in that Sharks lineup. Granted, that is of Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson. So again, not by any stretch of the imagination a very bad defenseman, but I think to give away a second and a third might have been way too much, considering what the Rangers gave away for Jacob Trouba.
Well, that happened after. I'm not sorry. Big deal. Winnipeg gets fleeced again. That's the reason they're never going to win.
Jeez, hey, you've been down on Winnipeg for
I have been. I've been proven right so far.
Well, yeah, I think this year was my last year of picking Winnipeg to really do anything. But knowing my luck, they're going to end up winning a Stanley Cup next year, and I'm going to get.
Going to be the Washington Capitals of the Western Conference.
No, because the Capitals won already.
Expectations team that has they're not a Russian, but they got a European leading scorer too. They had expectations. They have a decent goalie, kind of like Holtby, and it just takes a very long time. We think it's never going to happen, then it does. They could be the Caps.
I say to this point, they're Capitals pre-2018. They're the Capitals when they blew a 3-1 lead to the Rangers. They couldn't beat Pittsburgh and everything like that. Right now, they can't get out of their own way in the second round. But yeah, you kind of just tore apart my whole Corsi thing. And, for those who don't know, Corsi is basically the possession metric that if you're around 50, it means your team – 50 is basically average. Your team has the puck the same amount of time as the other team has the puck. Over 50 is obviously better. Under 50 isn't too great. And over the last 3 seasons, Braun's averaging a Corsi of 47.3. So his team is being decently outpossessed when he's on the ice.
I don't care about 3%. I can't tell you what I do care about. I care about Logan Couture and Brandon Dillon calling this guy a warrior on Twitter, saying that he's the most underrated part of the back end, as overlooked as they come, helped us tremendously. He'll be missed from a 7th-round pick to a decade plus. These guys were shouting him out. They miss him. They like him. The Flyers were a team that was – there's always drama in that room as well. I think Braun will help settle that a little bit. Look, no defenseman that's 5th on his depth chart, 4th is going to be a advanced stats guy. I'm okay with that. The Flyers didn't – in my mind, they didn't give up that much, especially because they got that pick back. It's a good deal, and they helped the Sharks out by giving them some cap space. Win-win.
Yeah, they gave him $3.8 million in cap space. This was after the Karlsson signing, but I'll give it to you. I think it was a decent trade if you're Philly. You needed a decent enough defenseman to play on that back end, and you really didn't give up too much. I guess it all depends on what comes out of those picks. Granted, you did get that pick back, so at the end of the day, you get to see that come to fruition. Now we're going to go into Mitch Marner's contract situation in Toronto. This was as of Wednesday morning when we were getting ready for this show. When I was getting ready for this show, this is according to Nick Kypreos of TSN 590. he said Marner's only going to take 11 million plus. And after Carlson and Skinner's deal specifically, there's been no progress made between Marner and the Leafs. And Marner's camp believes that there's going to be an offer sheet involved here, which will be very interesting to see what team is bidding for Mitch Marner. And the Leafs, they said they upped their deal before the draft for one last time to see if Marner was signed. Haven't seen anything on that just yet. But, if Marner doesn't get his 11 plus from Toronto, where do you think he ends up, or do you think he holds out?
$11 million. You said what? 8 guys are making that right now?
A little, yeah.
Mitch Marner's great, but $11 million, I gotta say, is a little rich.
Well, also think about this. Sidney Crosby isn't making over $10 million a year in his salary because
if he's 8.7, that would be fun. If he's making 8.7,
yeah. I'll get you the exact number in a second. But when some of these guys sign these contracts, it was before this time.
Marner's not Sidney Crosby, okay?
Well, I understand that. I'm just saying.
Good player. Back to what you're saying. I could see a lot of teams are in line for this guy. I mean, it's hard. You know what it is? It's easier to think of teams who wouldn't be interested in Mitch Marner. Because even teams that are rebuilding, that have some cap space, teams like, I might even say like Detroit. Just teams that are rebuilding and have cap space. He appeals to them because they know he's a proven NHL player. He's definitely a top 6 winger, and he's top liner for sure.
Can you imagine a first line of Anthony Ciu, Larkin, and Marner?
That's a good fit, and they're not making the playoffs, but every team's interested in this guy, except for a team that doesn't have the space for him. It just comes down to who has the audacity to be willing to pay that much money for him. Because if it goes to 11 or 12, I do think he's gone.
By the way,
and that's a lot of money. If someone offers him that much, I think he's gone.
I got a confirmation on Sidney Crosby. He is making $8.7 million.
That's a setup.
That is, I don't know if that was on purpose or if that was. I don't think that could be on accident. But so that's a pretty cool little nugget. But also, if he does sign at $11+ million in Toronto, if Toronto throws out $11+ million to sign him, 40% of the teams, well, actually it's a little more now because I had this at the projected $83 million. It's now 81.5. Over 40% of the Leafs pay cut would belong to Tavares, Matthews, and Marner. That's handcuffing yourself.
It is. This is how teams get in trouble. Pittsburgh, Chicago, they got to win like those teams did.
Well, yeah. That if you want to talk about that though, Pittsburgh, Toronto got their cups. It was completely worth handcuffing themselves in the years to come after that. Toronto, they've been looking for it since what, 1960,
67. Yeah, and you know what? For the Sharks might be entering that territory too.
Yeah.
Carlson, Burns, Couture, Evander Kane's making $7 million. They're in that territory too.
And the Leafs would be the first team in the NHL to have 3 guys on their books over $10 million, which is
wow. Yeah,
3 guys on one team to be making over $10 million. And again, they still have to sign Kasperi Kapanen, who they've been in talks with trading a good amount of. He's been a piece to trade. He's probably around the upper 900,000 to a couple $1 million. I don't think he's worth that much to this point.
I think he's a gunner in Toronto. Although I will say, I just brought up his stats here. He did have a better year than I thought.
Yes.
Goals and 44 points. But yeah, so someone could offer him 2.5.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I don't think if his number gets to 2.5, I don't think Toronto can afford him if they want to go after Marner. Right. I think it is a team that you very well could see if they don't get Marner, maybe bumping that number up a little bit to entice him to stay a little more. But at the same time, I kind of wrote down 2 teams that I thought would, if Marner does get offer sheeted, who he'll be offer sheeted from. I didn't put Detroit in there. I think the 2 teams that are going after Panarin right now, if the team that doesn't get Panarin, I think will have the opportunity to offer sheet Marner if he doesn't get signed by that time. I think it's the Rangers and Panthers. Both teams have plenty of cap space. The Rangers are going to have somewhere close to, I want to say $13-ish million after signing Jacob Trouba, because they haven't actually done that yet. I see him signing in the 7.5, 7 range. Right now they're sitting at $20 million. Actually, now it's $18 million, because I was projecting the 83. So they're going to have a little less than that.
Both those guys cap-wise, then. How do you got room for both those guys cap-wise?
Well, that's the thing. If you're gonna sign Trouba for only 7, it means you still have 13 to spend. So you do have room for a Marner. This is just from the Rangers standpoint. Plus, you're more than likely you're going to buy out Brendan Smith, maybe trade or buy out Kevin Shattenkirk. Mark Stahl still up in the air, so you're going to get some cap room for that. You still have to sign Pavel Buchnevich and Brendan Lemieux, so those are guys that are going to make a couple $1 million each. If you're not going to trade Buchnevich, which he's been on the chopping block for the last couple days. Another guy I wanted to see the Rangers go after is Braden Point. In the same sense of a Mitch Marner. If Tampa Bay can't pay him because they got a lot of guys to pay, they're both the same type of player. Goal scorer, 90-plus points this season, top 15 in scoring. I think they could both, throw an offer sheet at them and see if something sticks. Florida, nobody has a contract over 7.5 on that team.
Yeah.
And the next big name that's due for an extension is Mike Hoffman in 3 years. So they have some room here to make a deal if they don't get Panarin, if Panarin goes to the Rangers. Granted, if they're going to sign, they're probably going to sign either one or two of those guys in Panarin and Bobrovsky, but they're going to have to pay Bobrovsky a lot. So that's going to maybe deter them from going after somebody else. But I
getting both, honestly, right? Florida has what? They got a lot of money, right?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, they got to have, if none of them's paying over $7.5 million, they got to have at least $20 million in cap space.
Yeah.
And, for me, Mariners? Yeah, they could pull it off. It wouldn't be easy, but I think they could pull it off. And I think Panarin of Florida, I'm sorry to burst your bubble as a Ranger fan, but I think that's a go as soon as they got Quenneville. I think Panarin they're really trying to build. And Barkov's a great piece. If you get that guy a winger and a goalie and a defense, you start building around him. And Ekblad's a good player. They got to get a goalie. They got to get a coach. They had to get some support. They already got the coach, and he's the most marketable coach in the league. I think Panarin could go there. But, yeah, Marner, if for some reason they don't get Panarin, Marner would be a great fit there too. Florida's going to get somebody.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a good team.
They're going to get somebody, whether it be Bobrovsky, whether it be Panarin, whether it be Marner, even whether it be Braden Point. I did see something on Twitter today saying the front runners this is from EJ Radick of NHL Network, saying that the Rangers to this point right now are the current favorites for Panarin. Bobrovsky is still favorited by Florida for the sole reason that the Rangers need offensive production to this point and a forward more than Florida does right now. And you know what? When you got guys like Trocheck, when you got guys like Barkov, when you got guys like Huberdeau that can play. By the way, Kaapo Kakko got compared to Jonathan Huberdeau on his draft player comparison, which is something that it kind of took me by surprise. Not as much as when they compared one of the players to Messi, which was crazy.
Yeah, you're probably looking for a little bit better than Huberdeau, right?
Oh yeah, he's not bad, but don't get me wrong. If I'm picking a number 2, I want better than Jonathan Huberdeau.
Yeah, he was number 3.
Yes.
Yeah,
but one of the lines that I threw out there that if Marner does go to Florida is Dadonov, Marner, and Trocheck. That's your second line. That's a very good second line. And don't get me wrong, I picked Florida to be in the playoffs last year. I'm gonna do it again this year. I think with Joel.
Yeah, this year they're safer from that. Yeah,
I think it's a different. They're not as much of a dark horse, I don't think. Granted, this is all speculation. If they're getting Bobrovsky, but I think with the coach, most likely with a goalie, and they have the offense to do it, and they have a good enough defense to get it done. So I do think Florida will be in the playoffs again next year.
I'll tell you what the biggest problem with your second line is. Who's playing center on that line?
I got Marner playing center on that line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. They would make it work, though. Believe me, make that work.
He would spend all of training camp taking faceoffs 3 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I think if there's one guy that you could trust with molding somebody from a winger to a center, I would say it's Joel Quenneville.
Okay.
So moving on, another different trade. The first big trade of the offseason, Jacob Trouba traded to New York Rangers for Neil Pionk and the 20th overall pick. I want to give a quick clap to Jeff Gordon for what he's done here in this rebuild, because I think he's exponentially accelerated this rebuild from where they started a year ago to now. This trade came full circle. I mean, you traded Kevin Hayes, 26 games of Kevin Hayes and Brendan Lemieux, and Neil Pionk for Brendan Lemieux and Jacob Trouba, and then a whole host of picks. This is just I'll get your take on it first, because I have to find one of the graphics that somebody posted on Twitter. So I just want to hear your reaction to this trade when you first saw it.
Similar reaction to the Taylor Hall trade, in that I was more frustrated that a team's general manager had the audacity to offer that in the first part as a trade, and then the audacity of Winnipeg to accept that as a valid deal. But the fact that the Rangers actually offered that as a deal for Trouba just annoyed me as a Flyers fan. But no, in all honesty, good deal, good move. Rangers need a number one type defenseman, and Trouba, he's close. He's definitely close. He's a top pair defenseman, and he definitely could grow. I think he'll benefit from long-term security there. Good offensive instincts. A lot of teams are interested in him. Very good pickup, I should say. And the cost isn't that much. I mean, Adam Fox made Pionk expendable for sure. And that was Winnipeg's first-round pick anyway. Give it back to him. Yeah, I mean, it's just frustrating, I guess, for me as a rival fan that trade was offered in the first place and accepted. But it's a good deal. I mean, I got nothing else to say. He's going to make Rangers fans happy. And I got nothing else.
So this was something that came out. FitzGSN _ on Twitter had an Excel spreadsheet. It was since the letter that was released last year, what Jeff Gordon has added and given away with the New York Rangers. So first, these are the players and picks that are out from the organization. Nick Holden, Michael Grabner, Rick Nash, Ryan Graves, Ryan McDonough, JT Miller, Steven Kampfer, Ryan Spooner, Cole Schneider, Cody McLeod, Marek Mrazek, Peter Holland, Zuccarello, Kevin Hayes, Adam McQuaid, Neil Pionk, 2019 first round, 2019 second, 2019 fourth, 2019 seventh, and a conditional 2020 third rounder. So that's what's out. That's what's gone out of the New York Rangers. This is what's come in. Rob O'Gara, Matt Bolesky, Ryan Lindgren, Chris Burgess, Vladislav Nemesnikov, Libor Hayek, Brett Howden, Ryan Strome, Connor Brinkley, Darren Radish, Igor Rykov, Brendan Lemieux, Julius Bergman, Adam Fox, Jacob Trouba, 2018 first-round pick that ended up being Keandre Miller, 2018 first-round pick that ended up being Niels Lundqvist, 2018 second-round pick that ended up being Joey Keane, who is 2019 first-rounder that they ended up giving back for the Trouba trade, second-rounder, or 2 second-rounders in 2019, 4th, 7th, a 2020 3rd, 7th, and 7th. That's how you do a rebuild to this point.
They got younger, for sure.
The amount of guys that you got out, and then for the draft picks that you got from that, and the young talent that you were able to get from that is absurd from what he's done since the letter. And I think having it written down in front of me made it even more stunning to see that.
Well, I mean, they sure got younger. I'll give them that, and they got faster, and that's what wins these days. But you all got to put it. You got to put it all together, and there's still a couple pieces away. These kids, some of them aren't going to work out, some of them will, and we'll see. They're not quite there yet. I think they get very close, and especially if Carolina takes a step back, I think they're looking at maybe close for that 8 seed. But until they figure out the goaltending, they won't be there yet. But I know they got a good goalie prospect. We'll see about him. He makes it or breaks it for me.
So
Igor
Shesterkin.
Yeah, that guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you kind of just,
or they win. They're scary if that works out.
You kind of just took my question right out of my mouth. So you see the Rangers maybe making the playoffs, maybe not. A fringe.
Yeah, I mean, right now, no free agency yet, but I'd still have them a touch short. Maybe I'm just being a pessimist, but I'd have them a touch.
No, I 100% agree with you. I don't expect them to make the playoffs. Do I expect them to be the 16th pick? Yes. I expect them to be in a position where Montreal and Arizona was this year, to where.
Sorry.
What?
Welcome to Flyers territory.
I expect him to be in a position where you come April, come late March, you're fighting for a playoff spot, but don't get it. The year after that, however, is where I see them making that big jump. If depending on free agents and everything like that, and how these players pan out, I could definitely see them making that jump in 2 years in the 2021-22 season. I think, right? No, 2020-2021 season.
Perfect. That's when the lockout's going to happen.
Exactly. So they don't have a chance to play by the time they all get into their prime. So another Flyers news, and technically sort of Ranger news. Kevin Hayes signed with the Flyers, 7 years, $50 million, 7.14 per year. I gotta say, 7.14 a year. Not a huge fan of the number for Philly, but I do love the pickup. He thrived under Alain Vigneault. He's a big guy. We'll get in the gritty areas.
All right.
And he'll score you some goals. He will have some times where you're kind of like, what the hell are you doing? He'll have those airhead space cadet type moments on the ice, but I think they might have overpaid a little bit, but I think they're getting a very good player in Kevin Hayes.
Yeah, the need for me trumps the cost. You know, they needed a second line center very badly. They also could use a guy with size, and it helps that he played with Vigneault and had a pretty good relationship with him from what I'm reading here and hearing from Rangers fans that he liked Vigneault. That I don't mind it. I mean, in today's NHL, everyone's getting paid a lot of money. And recently, Van Riemsdyk and Evander Kane, Max Pacioretty all got $7 million cap hits. I think Anders Lee is looking at a $7 million cap hit for sure this summer from somebody. And for me, Hayes is either in that class or he's a touch below it offensively, but he makes up that money for being a big center. You know, I don't mind it. I love the fit. And, I was excited by it. I thought it was a great move for the Flyers to negotiate with him early, and I like the signing. I mean, I've heard nothing but good things from Rangers fans, and I know that when he came in as a college free agent, I knew who he was then. I wanted him then. And he didn't want to come to Philly, but now you're here, so welcome aboard.
So you mentioned in that class of the kind of high fives to low sevens number to where people are getting paid. These are guys that Kevin Hayes is making more money than this year. You got guys like Bergeron, Pastrnak, that whole line, by the way, of Bergeron, Pastrnak, and Marchand, he's being paid more than. Mark Scheifele, Taylor Hall, who's a UFA next year, who might not even be with the Devils next year, depending on what happens this year, which is something we're going to get into next, because that happened yesterday, and that took me by surprise. Making more than Barkov, making more than Larkin, I understand.
9 years ago, okay? None of them are new, and these were young bridge deals. You know, look, this is his big contract. I don't mind it. The Flyers had a cap space anyway. I don't care.
So,
good move.
Good move, Philadelphia. No, don't get me wrong. I love Kevin Hayes as a player. If we could have gotten back for 7.14, I would have been happy with it. I liked the player. He was a very good. I mean, think about it though. If we were able to get Trouba, Lemieux, the pick, and still get Kevin Hayes in free agency, that would be something that's one of the all-time GOAT moves. If
you didn't, and now he's in orange and black, and I look forward to seeing Rangers fans' reactions to that for years.
Well, speaking of blank and black, PK Subban is in the red and black with the New Jersey Devils. He got traded from the Nashville Predators. I'm picking up the deal right now because I didn't write it down, didn't have time. I know it was Steve Santini, a second rounder, and I'm blanking on the last name.
He's a prospect.
Yeah,
he hasn't played in the NHL yet, and a bunch of cash.
Yes, and cash. The Devils are back for this year. The Devils are back.
The goalie.
The goalie will be the issue. Yes, but
I don't like that the Devils. You know what? I will say this about the Devils. I'm going to say that if they can ditch their identity and play to speed and up-tempo offense, they could be pretty good. You know, if they could ditch their identity, the problem is their coaching staff and their GM and their management's all about, you know, the old boring Devils way. But if they could maybe, you know, this seems like they're moving away from that. They have some pieces. They could be actually kind of exciting on offense if they do it right. Hughes and Pacioretty. Excuse me, what am I saying? Hall and Hughes and Hall and Subban on defense. They just got to get a goalie. I don't know. I don't think Blackwood's the answer from what I'm hearing from Devils fans. And they're getting pieces. If they can move away from that identity, they'll be good. But Subban, the other thing I'm going to say is too, he's not. I haven't seen Devils fans saying he's going to put them over the top. I mean, I don't see it.
No,
he's a real good.
He's
I love him, but he's not. They need more.
I think he's a very good to great defenseman, offensive defenseman. His defensive side of the puck is where I have my most concerns with him. But as an overall character and locker room guy, I think, and this is not what you heard when he was traded from Montreal, he's one of the best guys you can get to unite a locker room and get everybody on a cause and really unite a team. However,
to me, being traded from Nashville, I'd be questioning it. The guys like him don't get traded that often, and he's been traded twice.
I don't think, from what I heard with this trade, it was a lot. Most of the reason they traded Subban was the cap room that they had. Mm-hmm. Nashville's in cap hell, like a lot of these teams that we've been talking about, and they just couldn't afford to pay PK Subban the $9 million that he's had or that his contract owes. Devils can, and they will for. I can't remember how many years are left. I think it's only 1 year left on his contract, which kind of brings me into my next point of how important this season is for the New Jersey Devils. They have to convince Taylor Hall this year that they could be a contender in the next couple of years for him to stay around. I think Taylor Hall is done being on losing teams, and if the Devils are a below average to bottom teams somehow with this team that they have, there's no way they re-sign Taylor Hall.
It's an important year for the Devils, and I'm glad they don't have a goalie for it because otherwise they would be a team that couldn't entice Hall to stay. As for Subban, there's 3 years left on his deal, including next.
3.
So they're going to be stuck with it for a little bit, but he's not old yet either. It's not like it's a deal that's lasting 7 years, for example. Mm-hmm. It's good for 3 years still. I thought there was actually more term left on it. But yeah, it's an important year for the Devils. If we're going to go Flyers, Devils, Rangers, who could get that last spot that maybe Carolina gives up, you got yourself a good 3-way race there. I mean,
that's something. That's when you need a 3-way coin flip because you can't pick right now out of those 3 teams who would make that jump.
It's biased, but I would go Flyers because I think they have the best goaltending situation, but they also probably have the weakest defensive core. So they even each other out. The teams. That's going to be fun. And it's going to be fun for those rivalries.
Yeah.
Because Flyers Devils, I know, has waned. Speak to Devils Rangers if you want. But I think that's waned a little bit from where it was. It's going to be great to see these teams getting to hate each other again. And a lot of high draft picks has made that happen.
Yeah. And you think about this whole tri-state area with the Rangers, the Devils. I'm not going to count the Flyers for this. I'm talking about New York, Long Island, the Rangers, Devils, and Islanders. You have Jack Hughes, Capo Caco, and Matthew Barzal all within a 50-mile radius of each other. I think that very well can ignite this rivalry for 10 years, maybe back to what it used to be in the late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, kind of ending in 2012-ish when the last time the Devils were good. Yeah. But I think it's going to be a fun year. As a Ranger fan, to see them improve, to see them I'd love to see them make the playoffs, don't get me wrong. Do I think that they're going to make the playoffs? No. I think they're going to be a team that just ends up short. But the playoff predictions are for another time. That's for when we're back to school. Please. Those are going to be fun. I already have who I think is going to be in the Stanley Cup and who I think is going to win the Stanley Cup to this point.
But I haven't given that much thought. Sorry.
So one of our final things before we get into the NHL award reactions, Ryan Callahan retired to a degenerative back disease. It's a sad thing to see. He played 757 games, 186 goals, 200 assists, 386 points. It's just something that sucks to see. He was a captain of the Rangers for so long. One of the toughest guys I think I've ever seen play for the Rangers in my lifetime. The amount of times I'd see him drop down, block shots, and then get up and then take the puck the other way and start an offensive rush. But, Ryan Callahan, I hope everything gets better. Hope he's able to recover. So maybe he can make a return at some point. But if this is a career for Ryan Callahan, I think it's an outstanding career, to say the least.
Yeah, it is sad. He's a gamer. Those numbers for me, I would have thought they would have been better.
Yes.
To me, I'm going to interpret that as a compliment because it sure seemed like he was even a better point getter than he really was. He was really good at getting, clutch goals, it seemed like, or even just clutch plays. He was hard to play against, hit people, blocking shots. I mean, he was never the best player on the Rangers, but he was the right captain for them. And even I'm saying this, and I don't like the Rangers. Everybody knows this. Callahan was a real good player for them. I was surprised when they did trade him for St. Louis, but it was a move, I guess, that at the time made sense. But yeah, Callahan, it does suck. Like you said, he has to go out this way. He sure gave it his all, though. I mean, he played most of this season, I think, through it anyway. So he sure gave it his best shot. Absolutely.
So transition, our final topic of this episode, the NHL awards. They were Wednesday night, kind of a weird show, but Wednesday night in Las Vegas. The NHL awards, the preseason awards given by EA Sports and NHL 19. I'm going to read that list, and then we're going to compare that with the list with the winners, the actual winners. So the Stanley Cup, they had Toronto. They had the Conn Smythe going to John Tavares. They had the Hart with McDavid, the Ted Lindsay with McDavid, the Art Ross with McDavid, the Rocket Richard with Laine, the Norris with Erik Karlsson, Vezina with Sergei Bobrovsky, and the Calder with Rasmus Dahlin. We've already talked about the Stanley Cup.
Right.
What happened?
None of them were right?
No, none of them were right.
Awesome.
Not a single one was right.
About preseason predictions, everybody.
Yeah, never listen to them. The Stanley Cup winner this year, obviously the St. Louis Blues, the Conn Smythe, Ryan O'Reilly, the Hart, Ted Lindsay, and Art Ross were a clean sweep like they predicted, but it was the wrong guy, Nikita Kucherov, with an outstanding year, gets all three of those, which is pretty funny to see that they predicted a sweep but got the wrong guy.
You know what? Hot take alert. NHL writers got it wrong. NHL staff, whoever made these finalists, got it wrong. It's not the writers' fault per se. MVP, for what the award means to most valuable to his team, Patrick Kane.
Well, yes.
Patrick Kane's the MVP this year. Without him, Blackhawks aren't even sniffing the playoffs. They got as close as they did because of Kane. He had the best scoring season of his career. Kucherov, real great player on a real great team. I've always sided the guy who had a great year on not as great a team. Kucherov, definitely a great player, but I would have voted Kane. Well, what do you think about that?
I understand what you're saying, MVP, meaning most valuable to your team. But I think that the award is kind of turned into the best player in the league, and it's not really gone to who's the most valuable to their team. If it was who's most valuable to their team, yes, Patrick Kane was the only reason the Blackhawks were anywhere sniffing a playoff spot this year. But I think for a guy to score 128 points in a season, the most by a Russian in NHL history, you can't not give it to him.
I mean, he had a great year. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he didn't. I'm just, for what the award means to me, I'm always going to side with that guy. But you will see as these awards things go on that I tend to vote differently than the masses these days.
So the Rocket Richard, Alex Ovechkin, not a surprise. He always wins that.
Yep.
Why the one with Patrick Laine is besides me, because Alex Ovechkin always scores the most goals in the NHL. So that one, just to see Patrick Laine thrown in there was didn't like that at the start of the year. Norris, Mark Giordano, we talked about him a lot during the year, is probably the best defender in the league.
Great player.
For a 35-year-old, he had an outstanding year defensively. The Vezina, Andrei Vasilevsky, we had a lot of Tampa Bay people in this list because how good they were in the regular season. And then this is the one. I'm
not a fan of Vasilevsky winning the Vezina, to be honest with you either.
Who would you have
voted? I can't pick Leonard because I don't know he played enough games. So, I would have been fine with Bishop. I don't know. Vasilevsky for me, there were just too many games that I saw where he was giving up 5 or 6 goals. And I'm going to say again, I think playoff games, they matter. They're the most important games of the year. And Vasilevsky did not get the job done in those games. He did not have a good playoff showing.
So
Good player, but I would have voted Bishop.
This one is going to light a fire under your seat. The Calder Trophy went to Elias Pettersson. You have some very strong opinions on why Jordan Binnington should have won the Calder Trophy, so I'll let you take center stage and give your rant about that.
More needs to be said than the guy who won a Stanley Cup. He's the only rookie goalie to win all 16 games and win a Stanley Cup. And during the regular season, he was impeccable. He actually declined a little bit during the playoffs, and they still won the Cup. This kid's a rookie. He's the best. That's the best any rookie can do. Rookie of the year is the goalie that single-handedly almost brings his team to the playoffs and into the Stanley Cup final. I know the offense improved, the defense improved, but they wouldn't have gotten there if not for Binnington. Pettersson did a very good job. What, he's 70 points, I want to say.
I think it was 72.
Yeah, that's an awesome rookie year. That's almost a point per game. But that's been done before. Jordan Binnington, that ain't been done before. That is history. We all saw it. Again, you're going to tell me Pettersson's the regular season rookie of the year, but the total season and the one people will remember, Jordan Binnington. I don't get it.
So we'll move on. The last award given was the Selke Trophy. Ryan O'Reilly won that. And this is a list, by the way, of players that have won the Selke and the Conn Smythe in the same year. Steve Yzerman, Hall of Famer. Bob Gainey, Hall of Famer. Jonathan Toews, future Hall of Famer. Yep. And now Ryan O'Reilly. So he's in a very good company. And I kind of want to get your take as we wrap this episode up. Ryan O'Reilly, Conn Smythe winner. What are your thoughts on that?
I liked it. I'll be honest, I liked it. He had game 6, game 7 had a real good showing too.
Yeah.
And that's important. And he's the top line center. I know Shen centered with Tarasenko and Schwartz, but O'Reilly got the most minutes. I mean, he was awesome.
I didn't think you could have gave it to Binnington. Binnington, while his numbers after losses were impeccable, the numbers after wins and just in general were, pedestrian. They were pedestrian.
Yeah, they were fine. They weren't Conn Smythe. Nah, O'Reilly, awesome job. I mean, and as for Selke, he's deserved that for a few years. Bergeron is a stranglehold on it, but O'Reilly's been really just a terrific two-way forward for a very long time. And that's his first, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No, he should have had one years ago. That's a great player on D and winning faceoffs, killing penalties, and the offensive game, top line type center too. Awesome pickup by the Blues.
So that'll do it for episode number 23 of Dump and Change, presented by From the Bleachers. Stay tuned for the rest of the summer. We're trying to bank some pretty big interviews, to say the least. Nothing's official just yet. Still in the works, but there's some pretty good names on that list of people that we could be having on this show. We're not going to be coming out with episodes every week, but when big things happen, when a string of big things happen, I think probably our next episode will be when free agency starts to kick in and
players, baby, let's do it.
Help players start moving and everything like that. But until then, follow us on Twitter at Dump Change Pod. It is now officially moved back to Dump and Change Pod. I guess we might as well break the announcement now. We are moving back to a podcast format, away from the radio show format that we had last year. I think it gives us a little more creative liberties to have with this, and make episodes a little longer, give our more in-depth spins and analysis on things that maybe an hour wouldn't totally give you on a radio show. And I think you're also going to get better quality, better interviews, and it's going to open our horizons for interviews as well, to get people so they're not in a gridlocked in a specific time.
Yeah, go find us on Spotify.
Yep, Spotify, Apple Music, Shout Engine. We're going to do the best we can to get on maybe some other platforms. But until the next episode, he's Tom Krasnowski. I'm Stephen Pappas. We'll see you later. Perfect. I'll cut this out. So yeah, the names, by the way, I've been throwing around. Doc, got the email from him back. Kenny Albert, I'm working with Avery on. He's very good friends with him, and he had him on his show, so he said he's going to talk to him. And then Tom Rinaldi, who I need to get out with or get in touch with. And then one that just came across and yesterday, my manager for the baseball team that I work for is works at MSG and knows Bill Pito and Sam Rosen and them very well. So I'm gonna try and get a plug in for that.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna stop that. That sounds pretty great.
So I also I'm also applying for the Hartford Wolfpack job this year. Hopefully they'll
Job.
like a broadcast intern type of job.
Oh, during school, yeah.
Yeah, during the school year. So hopefully that turns well. Hopefully I'm around those players maybe at middle of the way through the season. Hopefully thinking like December.
Podcast.
No. I'm just saying
Making a Rangers podcast.
if we start getting actual AHL players on and people that are in NHL systems. I'm not saying we might just end up getting one at that, so it doesn't turn into a Rangers podcast. So I'll keep you in the loop for that. But very good episode. Good to be back after a couple months or a couple weeks of not doing anything.
I was done doing Jordan Binnington rants, but
all right. I'll talk to you later.
All right. See ya. Good stuff.
See ya.